I make my living collaborating with dead people. Mostly I collaborate with a dead man named Shakespeare. Now you might reasonably ask, what's the point of collaborating with somebody who's already dead? Sooner or later, all of us learn the answer to that question. Because sooner or later, all of us know and love and grieve for somebody dead. Our grandparents, our parents usually die before we do. Sometimes even our children die before we do. Shakespeare's King Lear has to carry onto the stage the body of his murdered youngest daughter. I know when one is dead and when one lives. She's dead as earth, he says. And then, even though he knows she's dead, he talks to her. Thou wilt come no more. Never, 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 never. My grandfather, who loved me like the son he never had, died when I was in high school. My youngest sister died from medical malpractice when she was only 17. They will come no more. Our ability to love people who are dead can extend to loving people who died before we even met them. Chimpanzees and whales can love, can grieve, but as far as we know, we are the only animals who can love a member of our species who died before we were even born. In fact, our relationships with the dead can be as powerful as our relationships with the living. Jesus and Muhammad died many centuries ago, but those two dead men still profoundly shape the identities and actions of billions of living human beings. How is that possible? The dead are the most disempowered, the most disadvantaged of all human ethnicities, communities, minorities, what I call human genres, genres of human identity and possibility. The dead have no power at all unless we, the living, decide to give them power. For 40 years, I've been collaborating with dead Mr. Shakespeare. But in that time, I've also collaborated with a lot of living people. I'm a member of the global Shakespeare community. We collaborate with him by proofreading his texts, correcting them, explaining the meanings of obsolete words, memorizing his lines, singing his songs, performing his plays, directing them, designing them, filming them, illustrating them, teaching them, translating them, transmitting them to new readers and audiences. So, from a lot of personal activity, collaborating with those living Shakespeareans, I can tell you that working with dead people has one huge advantage over working with living people. When you collaborate with the dead, you can win every argument. They can't raise their hands and object. They can't storm out of the room, which means it's very, very easy to persuade yourself that the dead agree with you about everything. The advantage of collaborating with the dead is you can always get your own way. The disadvantage of collaborating with the dead is you can always get your own way. Unless you're super scrupulous, the dead become, your silent partner becomes just an echo, just a mirror. But if I want to actually learn something from the dead, if the dead are going to be actually useful to the living, we have to preserve their independence. I have to listen especially carefully. I have to watch especially closely for any sign of dissent. I must become skeptical of my own assumptions. I must entertain the possibility that this great dead genius that I love and admire might have seen things radically differently than I do. If we're going to protect the independence of the dead, if we're going to ensure that a dead genius doesn't become just another, useless yes man, then we have to find empirical, objective, impersonal ways to study what the dead did. You might think of that empirical research as a kind of autopsy. What remains of Shakespeare? Shakespeare's remains are a few dozen printed and manuscript texts. Texts make it possible for us to know and love the dead. The history of text technologies, from cave paintings to 21st century multimedia digital files, have enabled thousands of generations to record their experiences, observations, thoughts, feelings, dreams, identities. Our job is to decipher those texts. Shakespeare's remains are inanimate material objects. When we autopsy a body, we're looking for evidence of past agency. What killed this person? A bullet? A virus? A blood clot? When we look at Shakespeare's remains, we're also looking for past agency. Who printed this book? Who copied this manuscript? Did Shakespeare write this poem or that play? And when exactly did all of this happen? And one of the things we find out when we use our increasingly comprehensive databases and our increasingly sophisticated linguistic and statistical tools is that Shakespeare collaborated a lot. Anywhere from a quarter to a third of his plays contain big chunks of writing by other playwrights. His most important and most frequent collaborators were themselves amazing writers, Thomas Middleton and Christopher Marlowe. I call Middleton our other Shakespeare because he writes as brilliantly as Shakespeare, but he writes about different things, mostly urban life, middle-class people, work, money, debts, the modern economy, including the modern sexual economy, political, religious, ideological conflict. Marlowe was, like Shakespeare and Middleton, an amazing artistic innovator. But he led a very different life and a much shorter one. University educated, probably occasionally employed as a government spy, certainly murdered when he was only 29, probably assassinated, allegedly an atheist and a homosexual. That man, Marlowe, wrote many scenes in 3 of Shakespeare's early history plays, and maybe 4. So when we're collaborating with dead Shakespeare, we're also collaborating with dead Marlowe and dead Middleton and several other dead, interesting writers. And this isn't just something peculiar about Shakespeare. If you fall in love with any particular dead guy and want to know everything about them, you soon discover that you need to learn a lot about the other dead people who surrounded him and worked with him. So you start out as a collaborator with one dead individual, but you soon find yourself collaborating with an entire dead community. And why should we do this? Because Marlowe differed from Shakespeare, and both of them differed from us. and they both inhabited a world that to us would be an alien environment. They interacted with it and interpreted it, each in a different way. And when you get two great visionaries looking at their world, what we get is a stereoscopic vision of that alien environment, that unfamiliar manscape, womanscape, pastscape. We talk about the past as if it was one thing, but there are millions of pasts. There were millions of people living in Elizabethan England, each of them as distinct as Marlowe or Shakespeare or Queen Elizabeth I, and all of them now dead. And even if we could time travel back to Shakespeare's, Marlowe's, Elizabeth's world, we wouldn't see it the way they did, because their dead physical brains and their lost personal experiences are different from ours. The dead are all immigrants from another time, and that's why we need them. Temporal immigrants, people from another historical time zone, demonstrate for us the galactic range of human possibilities. They are the deep gene pool of humanity. And that deep, diverse human gene pool is especially vital now, when our culture is becoming increasingly globalized, homogenized, flattened. Our cultural variety, the idiosyncratic variety of lots of local cultural experiments, islands of eccentricity. Shakespeare lived on an island. He never left it, as far as we know. Those Galapagos islands of human experiment used to be the insurance policy for our species to protect us from the unpredictable, uncontrollable world. Shakespeare's Miranda, growing up on an isolated island, almost uninhabited, is astounded when she first encounters a brave new world that has such people in it. But will our brave new future have any people in it? What kind of people, what kind of culture, what human genres will be best suited to that unpredictable, brave, and scary new future? The millions of human pasts are our safety net, our seed store of human possibility. But those many, many pasts, Shakespeare writes of millions of strange shadows, they can't preserve themselves. They're already dead. They will only be protected and transmitted by the actions of living collaborators. We will determine the future of the past. So, each of us needs to find our own personal dead partner. Pick one that you love, that inspires you, or puzzles you, or talks back to you. Discover what is humanly possible when you collaborate with at least one dead person. We can't bring the dead back to life, but we can bring the dead back to the living. Give a future, give a past, a future. Yours.